The arrival of the invaders. The sky turned dark, not from clouds, but from something far worse. Massive alien warships, each the size of entire cities, hovered above Earth. Their metallic hulls reflected the light of the sun, casting eerie shadows over the land. People stared up in shock and fear, their hearts pounding as they realized the truth. This was not a visit. This was an invasion. Across the world, governments scrambled to understand the threat. Military bases activated emergency protocols, fighter jets took to the skies, and satellites focused on the incoming fleet. But deep down, there was a silent fear. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. Then the message came. A deep, emotionless voice echoed across the world, transmitted through every radio, television, and device. The language was strange at first, but within seconds, it adjusted, turning into perfect English. This is Supreme Commander Vorthak of the Galactic Dominion. Earth is now under the control of the Dominion. Surrender, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to comply. The message ended. Silence followed. Then chaos erupted. People panicked, running through the streets, trying to flee, though no one knew where to go. World leaders debated their options. Could they negotiate? Was surrender the only choice? Others refused to bow, their eyes filled with defiance. One man, General Carter of the United Earth Defense Forces, stood in a war room, staring at the holographic display of the enemy ships. His jaw tightened as he turned to his officers. "They think we're weak," he muttered. "They think we will kneel. They're wrong." Across the world, resistance forces prepared for battle. Fighter pilots strapped into their jets, soldiers loaded their weapons, and scientists worked on emergency countermeasures. The first attack came suddenly. Alien dropships descended from the sky, massive hulking machines with glowing blue thrusters. They landed in major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, and released squads of armored alien soldiers. The aliens were tall, standing over 8 feet, their bodies covered in biometal armor. Their eyes glowed with a strange, unnatural light. Their weapons hummed with an energy unknown to Earth. People screamed as the aliens advanced, pushing through streets, taking over buildings, establishing control zones. The first battles were brutal. Earth's weapons struggled against the enemy's advanced technology. Bullets ricocheted off alien shields. Missiles were intercepted mid-air by energy barriers. Human forces were pushed back, retreating as the invaders secured more ground. But humanity did not break. In a ruined city, a squad of human soldiers hid in a collapsed building, watching the aliens march through the streets. One soldier, Corporal Dias, clenched his fists. "They think we're weak," he whispered. "Let's show them what humans can do." With a signal, his team launched their attack. Grenades exploded, sending alien troops flying. Snipers took down enemy officers with precision shots. Guerrilla tactics, hit and run, ambushes, setting traps, turned every street into a battleground. The aliens were confused. They were used to species that surrendered quickly, species that feared their overwhelming power. But these humans, they fought with everything they had. An alien officer reported back to his commander, his voice filled with unease. "The humans are resisting harder than expected. They fight with no pattern, no logic. They are unpredictable." Commander Vorthak narrowed his eyes. This was supposed to be an easy conquest. The Dominion had crushed hundreds of civilizations before. Why was this different? He ordered the next phase. The war had just begun. The first strike. The battle for Earth had begun, and the first blows had already been exchanged. Humanity had taken heavy losses, but the aliens had underestimated one thing: humans never surrendered easily. The Galactic Dominion's forces continued their advance, believing they had already broken Earth's defenses. They had fought countless civilizations before, most of which had either surrendered at the first demand or fallen within days. But humans Humans were proving to be different. First contact turns to bloodshed. On the outskirts of New York City, alien war machines crawled over the ruins of fallen skyscrapers, their massive mechanical legs crushing debris beneath them. Drones hovered above, scanning the streets, looking for any remaining resistance. The city's defenses had been shattered. At least, that's what the invaders thought. Deep inside a collapsed subway tunnel, Captain Rachel Monroe listened carefully, her earpiece crackling with signals from other hidden resistance cells. She clenched her rifle, glancing at her team, survivors of the first wave, soldiers who had lost everything but still chose to fight. "They think they've won," she whispered. "They think this city belongs to them. Let's remind them where they are." The signal was given. In a flash, the ruins of New York came alive with fire. Explosives planted beneath the streets detonated in synchronized bursts, ripping through the enemy ranks. Alien walkers collapsed as their legs were blown apart, their pilots screeching in confusion. Drones fell from the sky as snipers picked them off one by one. A squad of alien soldiers, caught in the chaos, struggled to regroup. Before they could react, a group of human fighters emerged from the smoke, moving with practiced precision. Monroe's team fired first. Armor-piercing rounds punched through the weak spots in the enemy exoskeletons. The aliens shrieked, their glowing blood staining the ground. One of them, still alive, reached for a weapon. Monroe stepped forward and shot him in the head. "Not on my planet," she muttered. The first ambush had been a success, but Monroe knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion would not take this humiliation lightly. The aliens realized their mistake. Meanwhile, in the command bridge of the Dominion flagship Velkar, Supreme Commander Vorthak watched in growing frustration as reports flooded in. Across the planet, human forces were fighting back in ways no one had expected. The resistance was not centralized. Humans were not relying on a single command structure, which made them unpredictable. Every time the Dominion adapted, humans changed their tactics. Cities that should have fallen in hours were still holding out, and in some places, the aliens were being pushed back. Vorthak's second-in-command, General Orovax, hesitated before speaking. "These humans fight like nothing we have seen before," he admitted. "Their weapons are outdated, their technology is primitive, but their tactics are infuriatingly effective." Vorthak finished. He clenched his clawed hand into a fist. "How is this possible? No primitive species should be able to resist us." Orovax hesitated before bringing up another troubling report. "Commander, we have captured several humans for interrogation. They refuse to break. No matter what methods we use, they showed defiance. Some of them even laugh at us." Vorthak narrowed his eyes. "Laugh? How could a species facing total annihilation find humor in anything?" Something was wrong. Something about humanity was different. Captured but not defeated. Inside an alien holding facility, deep in the heart of an occupied city, Sergeant Alex Carter sat in a cold, metallic cell. His face was bruised, his uniform torn, but his spirit was unbroken. An alien officer entered, staring at him with glowing yellow eyes. The creature's long, reptilian fingers hovered over a control panel. "Human," it hissed, "your planet is lost. Your people are dying. Submit, and we will grant you a merciful death." Carter smirked, leaning back against the cold metal wall. "That's the thing about humans," he said. "You think you've won just because you have bigger guns, but we don't break that easily." The alien's frustration was visible, but before it could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Explosions rocked the walls. The resistance had come for their people. "Told you," Carter chuckled, just as the cell door was blasted open. A firefight erupted in the corridors. Human soldiers stormed the facility, taking down guards with brutal efficiency. Carter grabbed a rifle from a fallen alien, joined his rescuers, and turned the battle in their favor. Within minutes, the prison was in flames, and the humans escaped into the night. The Dominion had lost yet another foothold. The war is just beginning. As dawn broke over Earth, The first real victories of humanity were being celebrated in the shadows. Alien corpses littered the streets. Dominion forces had suffered their first real taste of defeat, and humanity had sent a message. We are not weak. We will not surrender, and we will make you regret coming here. But in the darkness of space, the Galactic Dominion prepared for its next move. If the humans would not break, then the full force of the Empire would be unleashed upon them. The war had only just begun. Humanity's secret weapon. The war had raged for days, and the Galactic Dominion was beginning to realize something terrifying. Humanity was not breaking. Cities had fallen, yes. Governments had been pushed to the brink. But unlike every other species the Dominion had conquered, humans refused to surrender. Instead, they adapted. They fought in ways the aliens had never encountered before. And, worst of all, they had started to win. The trap that changed everything. High above Earth, the Dominion's flagship, Velker, hovered in orbit, its massive structure gleaming against the backdrop of space. Inside, Supreme Commander Vorthak watched the battlefield through a holographic projection. The reports were growing worse. "Sir," General Orovac spoke, his voice filled with hesitation. "We have lost control of 3 major territories. Our ground forces are struggling to maintain order." Vorthak growled, his sharp teeth grinding together. "Unacceptable. This planet should have been pacified by now. We underestimated them." It was an admission that no Dominion officer had ever dared to make before. The Galactic Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never lost. But this was different. And Vorthak hated it. He slammed his fist against the holographic table. "Deploy the orbital bombardments. If they refuse to surrender, we will burn their cities to ash." Orovax hesitated again. "Commander, the humans have anticipated this. They have developed countermeasures." Vorthak narrowed his eyes. "What?" Orovax turned to the screen, displaying satellite footage of an alien warship attempting to fire on a human stronghold. But before it could launch its attack, something incredible happened. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the ground, striking the ship directly. The vessel's lights flickered, and then, in an instant, it lost all power. Its engines sputtered and died. Its weapons shut down. The mighty Dominion warship, once a symbol of unstoppable power, now drifted helplessly in Earth's atmosphere. And then, from the city below, dozens of human fighter jets launched. Vorthak watched in horror as the helpless warship was torn apart by missile fire. "They disabled us," Orovax whispered. "They found a way to neutralize our technology." The humans had developed EMP weapons specifically designed to target Dominion ships. And now the Dominion's greatest advantage, its superior technology, was at risk of being turned into a weakness. Inside the mind of a human general, deep inside an underground military bunker, General Carter stood before a table covered in maps, holographic projections, and scattered reports. A dozen commanders, representing what was left of Earth's forces, sat around him. The room was tense. They had won a few battles, but the Dominion still held most of the planet. Their numbers were overwhelming. Carter pointed to the latest reports. "The aliens rely too much on their technology. We can't outgun them, but we can outthink them. If we make their weapons useless, we level the playing field." A scientist in the corner adjusted his glasses. "The EMP strikes are working, but we need to hit them harder. We need to take down their command network." Carter nodded. "Which means we take out their central control ship." The room went silent. One of the commanders, a battle-hardened Marine, crossed his arms. "You're talking about going into space, directly attacking their flagship. That's suicide." Carter smirked. "Only if we fail." The infiltration mission. That night, under the cover of darkness, a group of elite human soldiers prepared for a mission unlike any before. Their objective: infiltrate the Dominion's orbital command center and disable their communication systems. They were equipped with stolen alien armor, modified human weapons, and most importantly, a way to bypass Dominion security. A single captured Dominion shuttle, repainted and refitted, would serve as their transport. If all went well, the aliens wouldn't know they were on board until it was too late. The leader of the team, a grizzled soldier named Lieutenant Briggs, checked his rifle one last time. "If this works," he said, "we change the course of the war." The others nodded. No one needed to be reminded of what was at stake. Moments later, the shuttle launched into the sky, disappearing into the void of space. The battle in orbit. Inside the Valkyr, Supreme Commander Vorthak was still fuming over the latest setbacks. He turned to his tactical officers. "Increase security. These humans are more dangerous than we thought." But he was too late. Deep within the ship, the infiltration team had already arrived. Moving through the corridors in stolen armor, they avoided detection, planting explosives in key areas. Briggs activated his communicator. Phase 1 complete. Moving to the main control room. What they didn't know was that the Dominion had its own defenses. The moment they stepped into the control chamber, alarms blared. Dozens of heavily armed alien guards stormed in, weapons raised. "You really thought you could sneak onto my ship?" Vorthak's voice echoed through the speakers. "Foolish humans." Briggs grinned. "Yeah, actually, we did." With that, the explosives detonated across the ship. Fire and smoke erupted through the corridors. The Dominion flagship, the Valkyr, trembled as power systems began to fail. Outside, human forces had been waiting for the signal. The moment the ship's shields dropped, a fleet of experimental space fighters launched their attack. For the first time in history, humans were fighting in space, and they were winning. The turning point. The battle was brutal. Dominion fighters scrambled to defend their flagship, but the humans fought with speed and precision. One by one, alien ships exploded, torn apart by well-placed missiles. The Valkyr was in chaos, its systems failing, its weapons disabled. Inside the ship, Briggs and his team fought their way through alien guards, heading for the escape pods. "Mission accomplished," Briggs said as he activated his communicator. "Time to get out of here." As the humans escaped, the flagship began to fall. From the surface of Earth, billions of people watched in awe as the once mighty Dominion command vessel crashed into the ocean, sending a massive shockwave through the water. A cheer erupted across the planet. For the first time, humanity had crippled the invaders. The war was far from over, but the message was clear: the Dominion was no longer untouchable, and humanity was just getting started. The cost of underestimation. The war had changed. The destruction of the Valkyr, the Dominion's flagship, had shattered the illusion of their invincibility. The Galactic Dominion had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years, crushing every species that dared resist. But now, for the first time in history, they had been humbled by humans, a so-called primitive race. Supreme Commander Vorthak, once confident in his victory, now stood at the edge of desperation. He watched from the bridge of his backup command ship, his glowing red eyes scanning the reports flashing before him. Casualty lists, lost warships, destroyed bases. This was not how it was supposed to happen. His claws clenched into a fist. "How is this possible?" he growled. General Orovax, standing beside him, hesitated before speaking. "Commander, the humans have turned our own weaknesses against us. They fight without rules. They target our supply lines, disable our technology, and use guerrilla warfare. We err." Vorthak turned, his eyes burning with fury. "Say it." Orovax swallowed. "We are losing ground." Silence filled the command deck. The words felt impossible, unreal. The Galactic Dominion did not lose wars, and yet, here they were losing. "Increase planetary bombardments," Vorthak ordered. "Burn their cities. Make them suffer." Orovax hesitated. "We've already bombarded several regions, but the humans simply retreat and regroup. They are not reacting as expected." Vorthak's temper flared. He struck a nearby console with his fist, denting the metal. Then we will make them react. He turned to his officers. Prepare the purge teams. If they will not surrender, then we will wipe them out one by one. The resistance grows stronger. Deep beneath the ruins of Washington, D.C., a hidden war room buzzed with energy. Human leaders, military commanders, and top scientists were gathered around a massive holographic display of the Earth. Red zones marked areas under Dominion control, while blue lights showed pockets of resistance. For the first time since the invasion, blue was spreading. General Carter stood at the head of the table, his voice steady but firm. We've turned the tide, but we're far from winning. The Dominion is changing its strategy. We need to be ready. A young analyst tapped on the console, bringing up satellite images of Dominion troop movements. They've stopped focusing on large-scale battles. Now they're moving in smaller units, targeting civilians, wiping out entire towns without warning. The room fell silent. The Dominion, realizing brute force wasn't working, had resorted to terror tactics. An old veteran, a former U.S. Marine, slammed his fist against the table. We have to stop them. We can't let them break our people's spirit. Carter nodded. We won't. He turned to a scientist in the corner. Tell me you have something. The scientist adjusted his glasses, his face filled with excitement. We do. Our engineers have reverse-engineered some of the Dominion's technology. We've created hybrid weapons, human ingenuity mixed with alien power. He pressed a button, and a new schematic appeared. The Hellfire exosuit, a combat suit, sleek and powerful, designed for enhanced speed, strength, and resilience. Built from stolen alien armor plating, but powered by human modifications, it would allow soldiers to go toe-to-toe with the Dominion's best. With this, we can fight them on equal footing, the scientist said. Carter smirked. Then let's get them deployed. The battle for Chicago. Chicago had become a fortress. After weeks of fighting, the city had transformed into the center of human resistance. It was where the Dominion's next major assault would take place. The sky was filled with alien warships, their weapons charging up for an all-out strike. Below, human forces, soldiers, civilians, ex-military, even former criminals, stood ready to defend their home. Then, the invasion began. Dropships descended, releasing squads of elite Dominion warriors. These were not the usual soldiers. These were purge units, bio-enhanced killers trained for extermination. They hit the ground running, cutting through human defenses with brutal efficiency. But the humans had something new. From the rooftops, soldiers in Hellfire exosuits jumped into the fray. Moving faster than any human had before, they ripped through Dominion forces. Their armor resisted plasma fire. Their enhanced strength allowed them to tear apart Dominion warriors with their bare hands. One soldier, wearing the new suit, tackled a towering Dominion warrior to the ground and crushed its skull. Another used the suit's built-in energy blades to slice through an entire squad. For the first time, humans were not just resisting. They were overpowering. The aliens panicked. They were used to being the hunters. Now, they were the prey. A terrified Dominion officer transmitted an emergency signal. Command. The humans, they have adapted. We are being slaughtered. Vorthik received the transmission aboard his command ship. His expression darkened. Impossible. But it was happening. One of the greatest battles of the war had ended in a human victory. The fall of a legend. Word spread fast. Across the galaxy, alien species that once viewed Earth as a weak, primitive planet began to question everything. Some watched in fear, others in admiration. One Dominion officer, a high-ranking strategist, defected. He sent a secret transmission to human forces. Commander Vorthik cannot accept defeat. He is planning something worse. If you do not stop him, he will commit planetary genocide. General Carter received the message. His jaw tightened. Then we take the fight to him. The final warning. On the Dominion homeworld, a council of high-ranking officials watched the situation unfold. One elder, ancient and wise, sighed heavily. The humans. They are unlike any species we have faced before. Another official, still unwilling to accept the truth, scoffed. They are a lower race. They err. The elder interrupted. No, they are something else. Something far more dangerous than we realized. He turned to a star map, his glowing eyes scanning the countless systems under Dominion rule. If we do not end this war soon, he murmured, the humans will not just defeat us. They will replace us. The turning point. The war had reached a breaking point. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Dominion, a civilization that had conquered and ruled the stars for over 10,000 years, was on the defensive. Humanity, a species once considered primitive, had done the impossible. They had turned the war in their favor. But the Dominion was far from defeated. In desperation, Supreme Commander Vorthak prepared his most brutal plan yet. If he could not conquer Earth, he would destroy it. The new face of war. Above Earth, the Dominion fleet regrouped. Once they had scattered their forces, believing the invasion would be effortless. Now they gathered all their remaining strength into one final devastating assault. Vorthak stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Tyrant's Wrath, staring down at the planet below. His face, once filled with arrogance, now twisted with hatred. These humans have cost us too much, he growled. I will end this, no matter the cost. General Orovax, his second in command, hesitated. Commander, the galaxy is watching. If we commit full planetary extermination, other species may turn against us. Vorthak turned slowly, his piercing red eyes locking onto Orovax. Do you fear these insects? He snarled. Orovax clenched his jaw. I fear what they are becoming. Vorthak dismissed his concerns. Enough. Prepare Project Extinction. Orovax's face paled. You cannot be serious. Vorthak's claws tightened into a fist. We will wipe them from existence. No records. No survivors. Nothing will remain but dust. The order was given. From orbit, Dominion superweapons began charging. If fired, these energy-based planetary disruptors would not just kill humans. They would render Earth uninhabitable forever. The countdown began. The Resistance's desperate plan. In a hidden military base deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the leaders of Earth's resistance received the grim news. A Dominion informant, one of their own officers who had secretly defected, had delivered a chilling message. They are not trying to conquer Earth anymore. They are trying to erase it. A holographic projection displayed the alien fleet, showing the three massive superweapons hovering in orbit. Each was capable of firing a planetary annihilation beam, something never used before in war. General Carter ran a hand through his graying hair, his mind racing. How long until those things fire? The resistance scientist, Dr. Evelyn Cho, checked the data. 15 hours. Maybe less. The room fell silent. This was it. If they failed, humanity would be erased. Briggs, the commander of the Hellfire Exozoid soldiers, clenched his fists. Then we take the fight to them. We hit their fleet. Hard. Carter exhaled. We don't have the numbers. Even with our new weapons, we can't match them ship for ship. Dr. Cho looked up. But we don't need to. We just need to disable their superweapons before they fire. A plan was formed, the suicide mission. 3 teams, 3 objectives. They would infiltrate and destroy the superweapons before they could fire. This will be the most dangerous mission of the war, Carter said. Some of us won't be coming back. No one hesitated. Every single soldier in the room volunteered. The battle in orbit. The human fleet launched into space, small in number but fierce in spirit. Unlike before, they were prepared. Their ships had been modified, using reverse-engineered alien tech. Their fighters were faster, their weapons were deadlier, and their pilots were angrier. The Dominion fleet immediately detected their approach. The Tyrant's Wrath sent out a transmission. You are outnumbered, Vorthak's voice boomed. Surrender now, and we will grant you a swift death. General Carter responded without hesitation. Go to hell. The battle erupted. Human fighters weaved between massive warships, using hit-and-run tactics to evade Dominion defenses. Hellfire exosuit soldiers were deployed directly into space, boarding enemy ships and hijacking their systems from within. For the first time, humanity was fighting the Dominion in their own territory and winning. The infiltration teams. 3 teams. 3 superweapons. 1 goal. Team Alpha. Led by Briggs, their mission was to disable the first superweapons power core. Team Bravo. Led by Captain Monroe, their task was to plant explosives inside the second superweapons main reactor. Team Omega. A specialized cyber warfare unit tasked with hacking into the Tyrant's Wrath and taking down its defenses. Team Alpha fought their way through corridors filled with Dominion warriors, using their Hellfire exosuits to crush enemies in brutal hand-to-hand combat. They reached the power core, planting charges and setting a 10-minute timer. Team Bravo moved like shadows, using stealth and sabotage. Captain Monroe herself delivered the final strike, slicing through an alien commander before detonating the reactor. The ship erupted in flames. Team Omega, led by a hacker named Reyes, plugged into the Dominion network, shutting down shield systems across the fleet. For the first time, the mighty Tyrant's Wrath was vulnerable. The mission was a success, but it had come at a cost. Briggs, Monroe, and half their soldiers never made it out. They had sacrificed themselves so that humanity could survive. Vorthex's last stand. With the superweapons destroyed, the Tyrant's Wrath was now the last major threat. The remaining human fleet focused all firepower on the Dominion's flagship. Inside, Vorthak raged. He had never lost before. He had never faced a species like this. I will not be defeated by primitives. But he had underestimated them one last time. As the Tyrant's Wrath attempted to flee, a single human fighter locked onto its core reactor. Inside that fighter was Sergeant Alex Carter, General Carter's own son. His ship was badly damaged, his escape impossible, but he still had 1 missile left. "This is for everyone you killed," he whispered. He fired. The missile pierced the reactor, setting off a chain reaction. The Tyrant's Wrath, the most powerful ship in the Dominion fleet, exploded in a blinding burst of light. Vorthex's final scream was drowned out by fire. The war was over. The galaxy takes notice. News of the Dominion's defeat spread across the stars. The once invincible empire had been shattered by humans. On distant planets, other alien species watched in awe and fear. Some celebrated, seeing hope for their own freedom. Others trembled, realizing that a new power had risen. The humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, and they had just begun their journey into the stars. The last stand. The war was over. The Galactic Dominion, an empire that had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years, had been defeated by a species they once considered primitive. Their mighty Tyrant's Wrath had been obliterated, their superweapons destroyed, and their armies shattered. But Earth had paid the price. The war had left the planet scarred. Entire cities had been turned to rubble. Billions had died. Families were torn apart. And though the Dominion had been defeated, the battle was not yet finished. The remnants of the Dominion still remained, scattered across Earth and the solar system. Rogue generals refused to accept defeat, holding out in hidden bases, planning revenge. But the humans were not about to leave the job unfinished. Now, it was time for the final purge. The hunt begins. The skies above Earth were no longer filled with enemy warships. Instead, human warships, reverse-engineered from Dominion technology, now patrolled orbit, ensuring no more invaders could arrive. In the ruins of what was once Washington, D.C., General Carter stood atop a wrecked Dominion dropship, his eyes scanning the battlefield. His body ached, his uniform was torn, but his spirit was unbroken. A resistance officer approached, saluting. "Sir, we've confirmed reports of Dominion survivors regrouping in multiple locations. They refuse to surrender." Carter nodded. He expected this. The Dominion had ruled through fear, through brutality. Their soldiers had never known defeat before. Now that they had lost, they had nothing left but hatred. Then we wiped them out, Carter said coldly. No mercy. The officer hesitated. Sir, some of them are asking for asylum. They claim they were just following orders. Carter clenched his fists. How many times had humanity heard those words throughout history? Just following orders. He took a deep breath. Send them to the holding camps. We'll decide their fate later. But for the rest, the ones still fighting. He turned, his eyes hard as steel. Kill them all. The hidden war. The remnants of the Dominion army were scattered across Earth. Some had gone into hiding, disguising themselves among the ruins, hoping to escape notice. Others had formed death squads, determined to take as many humans down with them as possible. They launched ambushes on human patrols, bombed supply convoys, and attacked refugee camps. But they underestimated human rage. In response, Earth's forces deployed elite hunter-killer teams, made up of hardened soldiers, ex-resistance fighters, and even civilians who had nothing left to lose. These warriors hunted the Dominion survivors like animals. In the jungles of South America, human snipers picked off Dominion commanders, leaving their squads leaderless and afraid. In the ruins of Paris, a small group of Hellfire exosuit soldiers took down an entire enemy fortress in a single night. In the mountains of China, Dominion troops tried to hold out in hidden bases, only for human artillery to wipe them off the map. The aliens had once terrorized Earth. Now, they were the ones running in fear. Vorthex's last followers. Not all Dominion officers had fled or surrendered. Some, the most fanatical, had vowed to avenge Supreme Commander Vorthex. One of them was High Warlord Zakra, a ruthless Dominion general who had once commanded entire fleets. Now he was nothing more than a warlord, hiding in the ruins of an abandoned Dominion base deep in Antarctica. He gathered what was left of his forces, thousands of Dominion warriors, still armed, still dangerous. The humans believe they have won, Zakra growled to his soldiers. But we will remind them of their place. We will strike at their heart. We will turn their victory into ashes. His plan was simple, one final attack on Earth's largest city, New London. If they couldn't win the war, they would turn Earth into a graveyard. The final battle. The attack came without warning. Dominion dropships, stolen from their own fallen fleet, flew low over New London, dropping suicide squads into the streets. They opened fire on civilians, detonated bombs in crowded districts, and spread chaos through the city. Human forces scrambled to respond, but this was unlike any previous battle. The Dominion was not fighting to win. They were fighting to destroy. Within hours, thousands of innocent people were dead. General Carter received the news and immediately ordered a full-scale counterattack. This time, there would be no retreat, no surrender, no prisoners. Wipe them out, Carter growled. Every last one of them. The battle in New London was brutal. Hellfire exosuit troops engaged Dominion warriors in the burning streets, hand-to-hand combat raging through the ruins. Snipers picked off enemy officers from rooftops. Tanks and heavy artillery leveled entire buildings to flush out hidden enemy forces. But the true turning point came when Carter himself led a direct assault on the enemy stronghold, an old Dominion bunker hidden beneath the city. With his soldiers behind him, he stormed through the metal corridors, cutting through enemy defenses until he reached Zakra himself. The alien warlord stood tall, his armor cracked, his body bloodied, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "You think you have won," Zakra snarled. "You are nothing. Your species is nothing. The Dominion will return, and we will exterminate you." Carter raised his rifle. "No," he said, "you won't." And he pulled the trigger. A single shot, straight to the skull. Zakra fell, lifeless, and with his death, the last organized resistance of the Dominion on Earth was finished. A new era begins. The war was over. For real, this time. With the last remnants of the Dominion forces eliminated, Earth finally had peace. But it was not the same Earth as before. The war had changed everything. Millions had died. Entire cities had been erased. Humanity had been forced to evolve. And now, they were no longer just survivors. They were conquerors. Across the galaxy, alien species who had once mocked humanity now feared them. Others who had suffered under the Dominion's rule saw them as liberators. And on Earth, the leaders of the newly formed United Terran Command gathered to discuss one final question. What comes next? Some wanted to rebuild Earth, to ensure nothing like this ever happened again. But others looked to the stars. The Dominion is weakened. We should finish what they started. One general said, we should take the fight to them. Make sure they never return. General Carter remained silent for a long time. He looked at the holographic star map before him. Humanity had always been at the mercy of the galaxy. Now they had the power to change it. Finally, he spoke. We rebuild first. We recover. He paused, then narrowed his eyes. But after that, we don't wait for the next war to come to us. He tapped a glowing red star on the map, the location of the Dominion homeworld. We take the war to them. A new war was coming. But this time, it would not be Earth fighting for survival. This time, humanity would be the invaders. A message to the galaxy. The war for Earth was over. The Galactic Dominion had been crushed, their armies defeated, their greatest warships destroyed. The once mighty empire had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, believing itself invincible. But in a matter of months, it had suffered a defeat unlike any before. At the hands of humans. Now, with the enemy shattered and Earth rebuilding, a new question loomed over the survivors. What came next? Humanity had fought for its survival. Now, it had a choice. Would they remain on Earth, tending to their wounded and repairing their world? Or would they take the war to the stars and ensure the Dominion never threatened them again? The rebuilding of Earth. The world lay in ruins. The once great cities of Earth, New York, London, Beijing, Tokyo, Moscow, were either gone or scarred beyond recognition. The war had left billions dead, families torn apart, and governments struggling to maintain order. But if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was rising from the ashes. Across the globe, engineers, scientists, and military strategists worked day and night to rebuild civilization. Reverse-engineered alien technology accelerated construction, making it possible to restore entire cities in weeks instead of years. Genetic and medical advancements, taken from Dominion research labs, allowed doctors to heal injuries that had once been fatal. Fusion-powered spacecraft, built from salvaged Dominion warships, made it clear that humanity was no longer trapped on Earth. For the first time in history, humanity was no longer looking at the stars with wonder. They were looking at them with intent. The Council of War. In a massive underground war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, the leaders of United Terran Command, UTC, gathered for a historic decision. Around the table sat military generals, world leaders, and former resistance fighters, the very people who had fought to save Earth. At the head of the table stood General Carter, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes sharp as ever. A holographic projection flickered above the table, a map of the galaxy, marked with Dominion-controlled worlds, including their homeworld, Velcris Prime. For centuries, Velcris Prime had been the seat of power for the Dominion. Now it was vulnerable. The debate began. We should focus on rebuilding Earth, a diplomat argued. Our people have suffered enough. And what happens when the Dominion returns? An admiral countered. They may be crippled now, but they won't stay weak forever. We have to finish the job. We were fighting for survival, another general said. Are we now turning into conquerors? The room erupted into debate. Some feared becoming the very thing they had fought against. Others refused to give the Dominion a chance to rise again. Carter raised a hand. The room fell silent. He looked around at the faces before him. Leaders who had lost everything, soldiers who had fought through hell, survivors who had seen their homes burned to the ground. "We didn't start this war," Carter said, "but we'll be damned if we let the enemy start another one. Earth will rebuild. We will recover, but we cannot afford to wait for the next war to come to us." He turned back to the hologram, pointing at Velcris Prime. "We take the fight to them." The invasion of Velcris Prime. The galaxy had never seen a human fleet before. Now it would see the first one in history. The UTC mobilized the largest military force ever assembled by humanity, a combined fleet of warships, troop carriers, and strike teams, all built from captured Dominion technology. No longer outmatched, no longer outgunned. Now humanity was the superior force. The Dominion, still reeling from their defeat, had barely begun to regroup. Their fleets were scattered, their command structure shattered. The throne world, Velcris Prime, was weaker than ever before, and humanity had no intention of showing mercy. The invasion force departed from Earth, leaving behind a world still in ruins, but no longer in danger. For the first time in history, humanity was not just defending itself. It was striking first. The Galactic broadcast. As the human fleet approached Velcris Prime, General Carter prepared a message to the galaxy. This was not just about the Dominion. This was about all the other species watching from the shadows, some fearing humanity, others hoping they would be liberated next. A transmission was sent to every known civilization in the galaxy. Carter's face appeared on thousands of alien worlds, his expression cold, his voice steady. "We are humanity. You came to our world expecting an easy conquest. You burned our cities. You slaughtered our people. You tried to erase us. And you failed." The camera zoomed out, revealing the mighty human fleet, hundreds of warships, built from Dominion wreckage, now pointed at the very heart of the Empire. "We are no longer victims. We are no longer prey. And we will never let this happen again." The final word sent a chilling message to the entire galaxy. To those who seek war against Earth, run. Because we are coming for you next. The transmission cut out. And then the invasion began. The fall of the Dominion. Velcris Prime had never been attacked before. It was a world of towering cities, sprawling fortresses, and millions of Dominion citizens who had never known war. Now the sky burned as the human fleet arrived. Dropships descended, deploying Hellfire exosuit soldiers onto the surface. Human troops stormed enemy strongholds, wiping out the last remnants of Dominion rule. Dominion leaders pleaded for peace. But peace was never an option. One by one, the Dominion's last warlords were executed. One by one, the Dominion's symbols of power were destroyed. And at the very center of the city, on the steps of the Dominion's royal palace, General Carter stood over the last Dominion emperor, his rifle aimed at the defeated alien's head. The emperor trembled. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Dominion had been conquered. "Mercy," the emperor whispered. Carter's response was a single gunshot. And with that, the Dominion was dead. The rise of the Terran Empire. The war was over. But humanity had changed. They had started as survivors. Now, they were conquerors. Velcris Prime, once the throne world of the Galactic Dominion, was now the capital of a new power. A power known as the Terran Empire. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Epilogue. A new war begins. Far beyond known space, in the darkness of the void, other alien civilizations watched in fear. The Dominion had been unstoppable, until humanity destroyed them. Some saw Earth's rise as a beacon of hope. Others saw it as a warning. And in the shadows of the universe, a new threat was already preparing. Because every empire has an enemy. And humanity's war was only just beginning.